Welcome to the lecture, Check Uniqueness of Category in the Category Management Module. As per the requirement, the name and alias of a category must be unique, meaning that there are no two categories having same name or alias. So we need to update our application to show relevant warning message when creating a new category or updating an existing one. For example, when a category to be created or being updated having the same name as another category in the database, this warning message must be displayed. There is another category having the same name and followed by the duplicate name. And similarly, if a category to be created or being updated having the same alias as another category in the database, this warning message must be displayed. There is another category having the alias and followed by the duplicate alias. And to implement the checking uniqueness of category, we need to update the category repository interface, declare two new methods, file by name and file by alias, and write the corresponding test methods in the category repository test. And the main business of checking uniqueness of category is implemented in the category service class in the check unique method. And we also need to write some unit tests for checking uniqueness of category in a separate class, category service test. And in this lecture, you will learn how to use Mockito to write a service test class. And in the controller layer, we will create a new category REST controller that exposes a RESTful web services to be called by the client in the category form. So we need to do the following tasks in this lecture. Firstly, we need to update the category repository interface plus a couple of unit tests, and then we implement the check unique method in the category service class, and then write a service test class using JUnit and Mockito, and then code the category REST controller class, and then update the category form to call the RESTful web service using jQuery and show warning message with Bootstrap model dialog. Alright, come back to the project and open the category repository interface here, and we declare a new method, file by name here as suggested here. You see file by name. This method follows the convention in Spring Data JPA. And because the name of category is unique in the database, so we change this method signature to return just a single category object. Okay, that's it. And then we need to update the category repository test class here, category repository test here, and adding a new test method, test public void test file by name. And we want to test finding a category with the name is computers, and call repo file by name, and it returns a category object, category here, and then we assert this category object, assert that this category object is not known, category is not null here, and also assert that the name of this category object, get name, is equal to the given name. Okay, and let's run this test method, test file by name. Okay, successful. As you can see in the database, we have a category with the name computers here. Okay, let me modify the name computers 1, and this time the test should fail. Okay, the test failed because there's no category with the name computers 1. Perfect. And similarly, we declare another method in the repository interface here, file by alias here, and change the method to return a single category object because alias is also unique in the database. And we write a test method in the test class similar to test file by name. test public void test file by alias, and I want to test finding a category with the alias is let's see, alias is electronics and co-repo file by alias category, and assert that the return category object is not known. Assert that category is not null, and also assert the equality of the alias category get alias is equal to the given alias. Okay, that's it. And now run this test method, test file by alias. Okay, successful. And let me change the alias to something here, and if I run, it will fail. Okay, the test failed as expected. Okay. Next, let's start coding the logic for checking uniqueness of category in the category service class. Okay, so open the category service class here, and write a new method here for checking the uniqueness of a category based on name and alias. Public string. This method we return a string check unique, and we need to use 3 parameters which are ID of the category to be created or being updated, and then the name, and then the alias, and by default we return OK, meaning that the passing category will be unique in the database. And we need to identify whether it is creating a new category or not by checking the ID boolean is creating new equal to ID equal to null, or ID equal to 0 here, like this. If ID is null, meaning that it is creating a new category, and then we try to get a category object based on name. Repo file by name here. This should be category by name, and then we check if it is creating a new category, and then we check if the category by name object is not known, meaning that there's already an existing category in the database. If category by name is not null, then we return the string is duplicate name. Okay, that's it for the initial code. Because we want to test the check unique method of the category service class, so we need to create a separate test class, category service test. So the category service class is a class under test, and the category service test is a test class. And normally Spring Data API we inject an instance of the category repository interface into the category service instance. But for unit testing, we can use a Mockito to create a fake object of category repository, and it will be injected to a category service instance by a Mockito. Because we just want to test the service layer, not the repository layer here. So that's why we used a Mockito that allows us to create a fake object for the layer we don't want to test. Alright, come back to the project, and we create a new class under the test package here. The class name is category service test. And for testing with Mockito, we need to use a couple of annotations for this test class to use the extension for Mockito and Spring. So we use the annotation extend with and specify the extension class name for Mockito extension dot class, and also for Spring extension Spring extension dot class. And then to inject a fake object, a mock object of the category repository into the category service, we need to use the annotation mock bin here. Private category repository here report. At runtime, Mockito framework, we inspect the category repository interface and create a fake object of this type. And then we need to inject a fake category repository object into the category service class. So we use this annotation inject mocks and declare the service category service here service. So at runtime, Mockito, we create a fake object of type category repository and inject that object into the category service, because in the category service we have a reference to category repository here. Make sense? Okay, and then write the first test method, public void test check unique in new mode, return duplicate name, and we specify the values for the three parameters of the check unique method in the service class here: id, name, and alias. Integer id equal no, meaning that it is in creating new category mode, and the name is computers, and alias is abc. And then we create a new category object will be returned by the file by name method of the repository here, file by name. So I need to update the category entity class here, adding a new constructor that takes three parameters for id, name, and alias here. id, name, and alias here. Okay, and here I create a new category object, category, and passing the given id, name, and alias. And now we come to the most important part when using Mockito is specify the return value for the file by name method of a mock object. So we use this statement mockito dot when. Okay, and we specify when the mock object repo here, the method file by name gets called with the given name, and then we return the category object, then return here. Okay, and then we call the method check unique of the service service check unique, passing the id, name, and alias, and it returns a string result here. And for now we want to assert that the string result will be equal to the string duplicate name here, because when the file by name method gets called here, we return a category object has the name computers here. Okay, so we assert assert that result is equal to the name. Okay, and now we can run this test method. The test failed, and we got expecting duplicate name equal to computers. Let me see. Sorry, it should be equal to duplicate name. Okay, run again, and it will be successful. Okay, you see. So makes sense. So you got understand the purpose of using Mockito for testing the service layer. We don't want to test the repository layer, so we use a mockbean to let Mockito create a fake object, and we need to specify the when the method here to specify that when the file by name method gets called in the service class here, file by name, it will return the given category object. So far so good. And then we need to update the check unique method here. In case the category by name object is not null, then we need to get a category object by alias repo file by alias for the given alias here, and it returns a category object category by alias. And again, we check if this category by alias object is not null, meaning that there's an existing category in the database. So we return the string is duplicate alias to the caller, duplicate alias. Okay, and we update the test method here. Mockito when because in the service method it calls file by alias, so we need to specify the return value for the method called repo file by alias for the given alias here. Then we return no object because there's no category in the database with the alias abc. Okay, and run the test method again, and it should still be successful. Okay, you see. And similarly, we can write the second test method for checking the uniqueness of category, and we expect that it will return duplicate alias. Okay, so the second test method is similar, so we can copy, paste, and modify. And the method name should be test check unique in new mode, return duplicate alias here. The name is different. For example, name ABC, and the alias is computers. And we specify that when the file by name method gets called, it returns null because no category has a name ABC in the database. But for the method call file by alias for the given alias here, we will return a new category object here with the given alias category here. And then we expect that the result here will be duplicate alias because when the file by alias method gets called, it will return a category object whose alias is computers here. And also we pass computers to the check unique method here. Okay, and now let's run this second test method. Okay, test success, you see. And let's write the next test method for testing the case that it will return okay. So the method name should be test check unique in new mode, return okay. We pass arbitrary values for ID name and alias, and when the file by name method gets called, it returns no, and also when file by alias it returns no, meaning that no existing categories in the database having the given name and alias. So here we expect that the result is okay, because in the check unique method we return okay here. Okay, and we can delete the statement that creates a new category object and run this test method. Okay, you see successful. And now let me update the check unique method for the case that it is in editing mode. So we code the else block here. Else block here we check if the category by name, because when we come into this else block, the category by name object is not null. Category by name. No, we need to check the category object is not null, and we check if the category by name object ID is different than the given ID. This means that there's another category in the database has a name and alias as the category being edited. So here we must return duplicate name. Else we retrieve a category object by alias here, so we can copy that statement, and then we check if the object category by alias is not null, and then its ID get ID is different than the given ID, meaning that the category being edited is different than the one found in the database. So we must return duplicate alias, return duplicate alias, and other cases we return okay. And similarly, we write the test methods for testing the case that the category is in edit mode. Okay, so we can copy, paste, and modify this method. Here the method name should be test check unique in edit mode and return duplicate name. In editing mode, the category ID of a category is not null. For example, we give the ID 1, and when the file by name method gets called, we return a category object with the different ID. For example, ID 2 here. So in the database, we have a different category object with the same name. Then the result string will be a duplicate name. Okay, and run this test method. Successful, you see. And similarly, for the case that the editing category has the alias same as another category in the database. So we copy the second test method here for testing the duplicate alias. Test check unique in new mode, in edit mode, and return duplicate alias. Here we specify the ID is 1, and alias computers, and the ID of the return category object here is ID 2. So when the file by alias method gets called, it returns a category object with different ID than the ID passed to the check unique method here, but has the same alias here. So the result should be duplicate alias. Okay, and run this test method. You see, successful. And lastly, the last test method We check that it will return OK in edit mode. Here, the method name should be test check unique in edit mode, return OK. In edit mode, return OK. ID is 1. And we should return a category object with the same ID. So here we create a new category object here with the same ID as the ID passed to the check unique method. Same ID here. And same alias as you can see here. Same alias here. So we return a category object when the file by alias method gets called here. Okay, and then the result should be okay. Okay, run this test method. Okay, you see the test has been successful. Okay, so far so good. Next, let's code the category REST controller that exposes the RESTful web service method to be called by the category form. Okay, so we create a new category REST controller class here. Category REST controller. And we need to use the annotation REST controller. And we need to have a reference to the category service AutoWire. Category service and we expose the web service method using the post mapping annotation. Post mapping for the URL is categories / check underscore unique, and the method signature check unique, and we need to bind the values in the query parameters into this method parameters using the param annotation. The first parameter is ID of category, and the second one is the name of category, name, string name, and the last one is alias, string alias. And here in this method, we simply delegate the code to the service check unique, passing ID, name, and alias. That's it, very simple. And then we update the category form. So open the category form HTML here, and we update the form tag here. And when the form is being submitted, we call this function on submit here, return check unique, and passing the form object itself. And then in the JavaScript code, we need to code the check unique method here, function check unique, and the parameter is a form. And for now, we just return false to prevent the form from being submitted to the server. And now we get the value of category ID. Use the query selector for the ID field here, value. And we have the ID field, a hidden field for ID here. And similarly, we get the values for name and alias. Name, cat name, and cat alias. The ID of the text field is name and alias here. And to pass Spring Security, we need to read the value of CSRF token. Similarly to the code in the user form. Here, we have the code that reads the CSRF value here. here, and then we construct the params array. Sorry, the URL first. URL is URL here. URL here slash category slash check unique here. Okay, and then we specify the parameter to be sent along with the HTTP post request, which is an array here. ID is category ID. Name is category name. Note that the name of the parameter here must match the name we define in the controller here. ID, name, and alias. ID, name, alias, category, alias, and the CSRF token with the name is underscore CSRF and value is CSRF value. Okay, and then we use the jQuery method dot post to send the exact post request to the server with the given URL, params, and a callback function will be executed. Response. And now for initial testing, we just alert the value of the response from the server. And in case there's an error, we execute this function. Alert failed. Okay, that's it. And now we can start the Submit backend application for testing the checking uniqueness of category. And then later we update the code to show Bootstrap model dialog. Okay, Submit admin and login. Remember me. Login. Okay, I am in categories here, and let me test creating a new category with the same name as this category computers. Click new button, category name computers, alias, any alias, and choose an image file like this, and click save. And you see it shows alert dialog with the response from the server is a duplicate name here. Perfect, right? Because in the database we already have another category with the name computers here. Now I just change the name to a different name. For example, server, and click save. And you see the response from server is okay, meaning that there's no category in the database with the name server. So it's safe to save the details of this category into the database. Okay, cancel. And let me test the edit update category. I want to update the category computers here, and then I will change the name to laptops here. Change the name to laptops here. Laptops, and it should show the response is duplicate name. You see, duplicate name, perfect. And let me try create a new category with the same alias, hard driver. Yeah. Any category name and alias is hard driver. And choose any image and click save. And you can see the response from server is duplicate name. Or because we already have a category books, let me change the name to just clothes here and click save. And you see now the response is duplicate alias because in the database we already have a category with the alias is hard driver here. Perfect. And lastly, let's test the duplicate alias in edit mode here. I try to edit computer components and I will change the alias to memory. Okay, change the alias to memory and click save, and you can see it says duplicate alias perfect, and I change the alias to as a value here, and it should say okay, save. You see, okay, perfect. Now we can update the code to show a model dialog for the warning message like this using bootstrap and jQuery. Okay, come back to the project, and in the user form we already have the code for showing a model dialog here. And let me refactor it a little bit, because in both category form and user form, category form we also have the code for the HTML code for the model dialog. So it's better to move this div section into a template fragment. So we create a new template fragment file, copy and paste here, paste, and the file name is uh, model underscore fragments that contains only fragments for model dialog, and we delete the code. Okay, delete all the code and copy the code for the model dialog here, cut and paste here, and we use template fragment to specify this here fragment. The fragment name is model dialog. Okay, and then in the user form we use this like this. We refer to that fragment like this. The fragment file name is model underscore fragments, and then the fragment name is model underscore dialog. Okay. Okay, model underscore dialog here, and we do the same in the category form page here. Okay, and let's test the user module. For that code refactor, we edit this user and try to update the email to this email, so we can see the model dialog appears here, and click save, and you can see the model dialog appears here. Perfect. That means the code refactoring is working. And then we need to refactor the code that shows the model dialog a little bit. As you can see here, we use the code to show model dialog for warning and error message here. So it's better to have a new function that is show error model with only one parameter.